6 months after the fall of Zeroth Prime. The galaxy was a very different place. President Lee stood before the Galactic Assembly, a collection of representatives from every surviving species in known space. The Great Hall had once been the Empire's Senate, where alien nobles had decided the fate of trillions. Now it was humanity's courtroom. In the defendant's dock sat Emperor Vorthake, still in chains. His 4 eyes were dull and lifeless. The proud ruler, who had once commanded 1,000 worlds, now looked like a broken old man. "The charges are simple," President Lee announced to the packed chamber. "Genocide, the systematic murder of 50 million human beings, the attempted extermination of an entire species." Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched in silence. Most of them had been slaves of the Empire just months ago. Now they were free thanks to humanity's victory. "How do you plead?" President Lee asked. Emperor Vorthak looked up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Guilty," a murmur ran through the chamber. The former emperor was not even trying to defend himself. "I led my people into a war they could not win," Vorthak continued. "I ordered the death of innocents. I tried to destroy a species whose only crime was refusing to bow to my will." He looked directly at President Lee. "I am guilty of all charges. Do with me what you will." President Lee nodded. He had expected this. The Emperor's spirit had been broken when he watched his empire die. "The sentence is death," President Lee announced, "but not by execution. You will live the rest of your natural life in prison, watching the galaxy rebuild itself without your empire. You will see the species you enslaved become free and prosperous, and you will know that your legacy is nothing but ashes." It was a crueler punishment than death, and everyone in the chamber knew it, but the trial was just a formality. The real business of the new galaxy was happening elsewhere. Admiral Dong-Soo Kim, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, stood in the command center of the new orbital station above Earth. Through the massive windows, he could see the construction yards where hundreds of new ships were being built. "Sir," Captain Park reported, "the territorial assignments are complete. We've divided the former Empire space among the liberated species, as President Lee ordered." Dong-Soo nodded. "And the choice worlds?" "Reserved for human colonization, sir, just as you requested." The best planets in the former empire were now human territory. Rich worlds with perfect climates and abundant resources. It was the victor's right to claim the spoils of war. "What about resistance?" Dong-Soo asked. "Minimal, sir. A few pirate groups, some die-hard Empire loyalists. Nothing we can't handle." Captain Park paused, then added quietly, "Sir, some of our own people are saying we've gone too far. That we're becoming like the Empire we destroyed." Dong-Soo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Captain, the Empire ruled through fear and oppression. We rule through strength and protection. There's a difference." "Is there, sir?" Admiral Dong-Soo turned to face his captain. His eyes were hard as diamonds. "The Empire tried to exterminate us, Captain. They killed our families, burned our worlds, and would have wiped humanity from existence if we hadn't stopped them." He gestured toward the construction yards, where new weapons were being built alongside the ships. "Now, no one will ever dare threaten humanity again. They've seen what we do to our enemies. They know what happens when you try to hurt human families." "Yes, sir," Captain Park said quietly. But Dong-Soo could hear the doubt in her voice. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Sora Kim was turning that doubt into reality. She stood on the surface of what had once been an Empire mining world. The aliens had stripped the planet bare of metals and minerals, leaving behind a dead rock. But human terraforming technology was bringing it back to life. "Atmospheric processors are working perfectly," her assistant reported. "We should have breathable air within 6 months." Sora nodded, watching as massive machines pumped life-giving gases into the alien sky. Soon this world would be green and beautiful, a paradise for human colonists. "How many worlds are we terraforming now?" she asked. 57, ma'am. All former Empire territory. The locals aren't too happy about it, but they're not in a position to complain. Sora understood their unhappiness. These had been their worlds once, before the Empire conquered them. Now humanity was taking them for its own use, but that was the price of victory. The strong took what they wanted from the weak. It was the oldest law in the galaxy. "Double the terraforming schedule," she ordered. President Lee wants 100 new colonies within 2 years. Behind her, the machines kept working, turning a dead world into a human paradise. Meanwhile, on the edge of former Empire space, Captain Minho Yoon was preparing for humanity's next great adventure. His ship, the New Soul's Dream, was the most advanced exploration vessel ever built. It carried sensors that could detect life across entire star systems and weapons that could destroy planets. "Sir," his navigator reported, "we're approaching the galactic rim. No Empire records exist for this region." Through the view screen, Minho could see unexplored space stretching to infinity. Out there were new worlds to claim, new species to encounter, new challenges for humanity to overcome. "Any signs of intelligent life?" he asked. "Several promising signals, sir. Looks like we might have found some neighbors." Minho smiled. After defeating the Empire, humanity was hungry for new frontiers. The galaxy was big, but it wouldn't stay unknown for long. "Set course for the nearest signal," he ordered. "Let's go introduce ourselves to the neighborhood." His ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying human ambition toward the unknown stars. Back on Earth, President Lee sat in his office, reading reports from across human space. The news was good. Colony worlds were thriving. The military was stronger than ever. Humanity's enemies were dead or defeated. But late at night, when the city was quiet, he sometimes wondered what they had become. "Sir," his assistant Sujin said, entering with another stack of reports, "the Altorian delegation is here to see you. They're complaining about the human mining operations on their moon." President Lee sighed. The Altorians had been humanity's allies during the war. Now they were discovering that being humanity's ally was almost as dangerous as being humanity's enemy. "Tell them the mining operations are necessary for galactic security," he said. "Sir, they're saying we promised them independence. They are independent. They're free to do whatever they want, as long as it doesn't interfere with human interests." Sujin looked uncomfortable. "Sir, that's not really independence, is it?" President Lee looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of the city sparkled like stars. Each light represented human families living in safety and prosperity. "Sujin, do you know what the Empire would have done to us if we had lost?" "Yes, sir. Genocide. Complete extermination. Every man, woman, and child. They would have wiped humanity from existence without a second thought." He turned to face her. "We didn't start this war. We didn't want this war. But when they forced it on us, we finished it. Completely." "I understand, sir. But some people are saying we've become the thing we fought against." President Lee was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Maybe we have, but the alternative was extinction. Sometimes survival requires becoming something you never wanted to be." He walked back to his desk and picked up another report. This one was from the edge of human space, where Captain Yoon was making contact with new species. "Send a message to all human colonies," he ordered. "Tell them to increase military production by 20%. If there are new species out there, we need to be ready for them." "Sir, what if they're peaceful?" President Lee looked at the report again. After everything humanity had been through, after all the blood and death and terrible choices, he had learned one simple truth. There's no such thing as a peaceful species, Sujin. There are only species that haven't been threatened yet. And when they are threatened, they become exactly as violent as they need to be to survive. He signed the order authorizing the military buildup. The Empire learned that lesson too late. We won't make the same mistake. Across the galaxy, human ships patrolled the space lanes with weapons that could kill stars. Human colonies grew fat and prosperous on the bones of the Empire. Human scientists worked day and night to build weapons even more terrible than the ones that had won the war. The galaxy was at peace, but it was the peace of the graveyard. Everyone was quiet because They were afraid to make noise. The species that had once ruled through fear and oppression was gone. In its place stood humanity, teaching the same lessons to a new generation of subjects. Emperor Vorthek had been right about one thing. The humans were no longer the innocent species that had first reached for the stars. The war had changed them into something harder, colder, more ruthless, but they were alive. Their families were safe. Their children could grow up without fear of alien fleets burning their worlds. And if that meant becoming the thing they had once fought against, then so be it. The galaxy had taught humanity a simple lesson: the strong survive and the weak become. It was a lesson they would never forget, and it was a lesson they would teach to anyone who threatened them. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun, and the stars themselves would burn before humanity let anyone. The countdown reached 0.50. Human ships activated their nemesis drives at exactly the same moment. 50 Empire suns began to die. 50 billion lives hung in the balance as nuclear fire spread across the galaxy, but the largest fleet in human history was already moving toward a different target. Admiral Dong-Soo Kim stood on the bridge of Seoul's Pride, watching the tactical display. 10,000 human ships surrounded him, more than had ever been gathered in one place. Every vessel burned for revenge. Every crew member had lost someone to the Empire's genocide. Their target was Zeroth Prime, the Empire's capital world. "Sir," Captain Park reported, "all fleets are in position. We have the entire system surrounded." Through the massive view screen, Dong-Soo could see the enemy's last stronghold. Zeroth Prime was a city planet, its surface covered by one massive metropolis that housed 50 billion Empire citizens. Around it, thousands of orbital stations and defense platforms bristled with weapons. It was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. It was also about to fall. "Open a channel to the planet," Dong-Soo ordered. The screen flickered and showed the face of Emperor Vorthak himself. The alien ruler looked older than before, his 4 eyes dim with defeat. Behind him, the sounds of rioting could be heard in his palace. "Human Admiral," the Emperor said, his voice tired. "You have won. My fleets are destroyed, my worlds are burning. What more do you want?" "Your unconditional surrender," Dong-Soo replied. "And you, standing trial for genocide." Emperor Vorthak's eyes flared with anger. "Never. I am the ruler of the galaxy's greatest empire. I will not be judged by primitives." "Then you will die with your empire," Dong-Soo said simply. "All ships, begin the assault." 10,000 human warships opened fire at once. The space around Zeroth Prime lit up like a new star as energy beams and missiles filled the void. The Empire's orbital defenses fired back, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Captain Su Jin-Ru commanded the heavy cruiser Inchin's Thunder. Her ship punched through the orbital defense line like a knife through paper, its Hellfire missiles turning Empire stations into scrap metal. "Target the planetary shields," she ordered her crew. "We need to crack that shell before we can get to the Emperor." The planetary shields were massive energy barriers that could stop anything short of a supernova. But humans had learned something important during this war. Every defense could be broken if you hit it hard enough. Sujin's ship fired a full spread of Hellfire missiles at one section of the shield. The explosions were so bright they could be seen from the planet's surface. When the light faded, there was a hole in the energy barrier. "Breach confirmed," she reported to Admiral Kim. "Sending coordinates to all ground assault ships." Through the gap in the shields, hundreds of human transports dove toward the planet's surface. They carried the best soldiers humanity had ever produced, led by General Haewon Song. The general had volunteered for this mission personally. Her brother had died defending New Seoul Colony. Her parents had lived on New Bisan. She had many debts to collect from the Empire. "All units, this is Hammer 6, she broadcast to her forces as their ships entered the atmosphere. "Our target is the Imperial Palace. We're going to drag that monster out of his throne room and make him answer for every human life he's taken." The landing was chaos. Empire ground forces had turned the capital city into a fortress with weapons positions on every street corner. But human soldiers had been fighting this war for months now, and they had learned to be ruthless. Major Seok Jin Yang led the first assault team through the burning streets. His squad moved like ghosts, using the new stealth armor that made them merely invisible. Behind them came waves of human infantry, their pulse weapons cutting down Empire defenders. "Contact front," Sergeant Minho reported over the radio. "Looks like they've got the whole Imperial Guard out here." Yang could see. Then, through his scope, thousands of the Empire's elite soldiers, armed with the best weapons their technology could produce. They were bigger than humans, stronger, and had been fighting wars for centuries, but they had never fought humans who had nothing left to lose. "All squads, advance," Young ordered. "Remember what they did to our families. No mercy, no prisoners." The battle for the capital city raged for 6 hours. Human soldiers fought through every street, every building, every room. They climbed over piles of enemy dead and kept moving forward. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When their knives broke, they used their bare hands. The Empire soldiers had never seen anything like it. These humans fought like demons, taking terrible losses but never retreating. For every human that fell, 2 more took his place. "They're insane," one Empire officer reported before a human sniper's bullet found him. "They're attacking positions they can't possibly take." But they were taking them anyway. General Song reached the Imperial Palace just as the sun was setting over the burning city. The massive building rose a mile into the sky, its walls covered with weapons and shields. It should have been impossible to assault. "Sergeant Kim," she called to her demolitions expert, "can you bring down those shields?" "Yes, ma'am." "Give me 10 minutes and enough explosives to level a mountain." "You've got 5 minutes and whatever's in our packs." Sergeant Kim grinned. "That'll do, ma'am." The charges went off like thunder and the palace shields flickered and died. Through the breach, human soldiers poured into the building like an angry tide. Emperor Vorthok sat on his throne, listening to the sounds of battle getting closer. His guards were falling back, floor by floor. Soon the humans would reach his throne room. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvoar said, his voice shaking, "we must evacuate. There's still a shuttle on the roof." "No," the Emperor said quietly, "I am the ruler of this empire. I will not run from barbarians." "Your Majesty, they're going to kill you." Emperor Vorthak looked at his admiral with tired eyes. "Good, I have failed my people. I led them into a war they could not win against an enemy I did not understand. Death is what I deserve." The throne room doors exploded inward, and human soldiers poured through the gap. At their head was General Song, her armor blackened with smoke and blood. In her hand was a pulse rifle, aimed directly at the Emperor's heart. "Vorthok of the Zeridian Empire," she said, her voice echoing in the huge chamber. "I arrest you for genocide, crimes against humanity, and the murder of 50 million innocent people." The Emperor stood up slowly from his throne. His 4 eyes met hers without fear. "I do not recognize the authority of inferior species to judge me," General Song smiled coldly. "Then you can explain that to the families of everyone you killed." Major Yang and his squad surrounded the Emperor, their weapons never wavering. Behind them, more human soldiers filled the throne room. "Sir," one of Yang's men said, "shouldn't we just shoot him? After what he did to our people?" General Song considered it. It would be easy. 1 shot, and the monster who had ordered the death of entire worlds would be gone. Justice for 50 million murdered humans. But then she remembered something President Lee had said before the mission. "We're not fighting to become monsters. We're fighting to make sure monsters can never threaten us again." "No," she said finally. "He's going to stand trial. He's going to face the families of everyone he killed. He's going to see what justice looks like when humans deliver it." Emperor Vorthak was dragged from his throne in chains, the first emperor in the history of the galaxy to be captured by his enemies. Above the planet, Admiral Dongsu received the news with satisfaction. "The Emperor is in custody, sir," Captain Park reported. "General Song is requesting immediate extraction." "Granted," Dongsu ordered, "and broadcast a message to all Empire forces. Tell them their emperor has fallen and their capital is in human hands. Any ship that surrenders will be spared. Any ship that continues fighting will be destroyed. Across the Zeroth system, Empire ships began powering down their weapons and broadcasting surrender codes. The fight had gone out of them when they saw their mighty capital fall to human forces, but the war wasn't over yet. "Sir," Lieutenant Wujin reported, "we're getting reports from the Nemesis drive fleet. The supernovas are beginning." Through the view screen, Dongsu could see distant flashes of light as 50 Empire suns died. Each flash represented billions of lives ending. Entire civilizations turning to dust. It was the most terrible weapon ever used, and humans had built it. "Any word from the surviving Empire worlds?" he asked. "Yes, sir. They're all broadcasting unconditional surrender." "Every single one," Admiral Dongsu nodded slowly. The war was over. Humanity had won the most complete victory in galactic history, but the cost had been terrible. The Empire was broken, 50 billion people were dead, and the galaxy would never again see humans as just another species. "Send a message to President Lee," he ordered. "Tell him the Empire has fallen. Tell him humanity is victorious." He paused and looked out at the stars, where the light of dying suns was still visible. "And tell him we kept our promise. We didn't stop until it was dust." On Earth, President Lee received the news in his office. The war was over. The Empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was gone. Humanity was safe, but as he looked out at the peaceful city below, he wondered what kind of species they had become. They had built weapons that could kill stars. They had used those weapons to commit genocide on a scale Neve. The 24 hours passed like a death sentence counting down. Emperor Vorthag sat in his throne room, surrounded by his advisors. Outside, protests filled the streets of the capital. His own people were demanding he surrender to the humans before they turned the Empire's sun into a supernova. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvior said nervously, "perhaps we should consider their terms." "Never," the Emperor replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "The Empire does not bow to inferior species. Your Majesty, they destroyed an entire star system. They can do the same to us." Emperor Vorthak stood up from his throne. His 4 eyes blazed with anger and fear. "Send Ambassador Prime Kethral to negotiate with the humans. Tell him to offer them ... acceptable terms." But it was too late for negotiations. On Earth, President Lee had made his decision. He stood in the Situation Room, surrounded by maps showing Empire territory. Each red dot was a star system that might soon die. "Sir," General So-young said, "we're receiving surrender offers from over 200 Empire systems. Many of them are offering complete capitulation." "And the others?" "Silent, sir. We think they're preparing for a final battle." President Lee nodded. "Then we give them what they're preparing for. Begin Operation Sunburn." Across human space 20. Ships equipped with Nemesis drives received their orders. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a star system. Each captain knew they were about to cross a line that could never be UNCROSSED. Captain Chung Ho Kim received his orders aboard the destroyer Soul's Wrath. His target was the Malthun system, a fortress world with no civilian population, just military bases and weapons factories. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "are we really going to do this? Destroy an entire star system?" Chang Ho looked at the pictures on his desk. His wife and daughter had lived on New Daegu Colony before the Empire turned it into radioactive glass. They were gone now, along with 4 million other innocent people. "Yes," he said quietly. "We're really going to do this." The Soul's Wrath jumped to hyperspace. Carrying death to another sun. Ambassador Prime Kethral arrived at the neutral station where President Lee was waiting. The alien diplomat was tall and thin, with silver skin and 6 arms. He had negotiated peace treaties for the Empire for over a century, but he had never negotiated with humans before. "President Lee," he said in perfect English, "I come with an offer of peace from His Imperial Majesty." President Lee sat across from him at a simple metal table. Behind him stood General So Young and Admiral Gong Su, their faces hard as stone. "Let me stop you right there," President Lee said. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to accept your unconditional surrender." Kethral's 6 arms moved nervously. "Surely you don't expect the Empire to simply give up everything we have built over thousands of years?" "I expect you to surrender?" "Completely," President Lee replied. "All military forces disbanded, all weapons turned over to human command, all occupied worlds granted immediate independence. No exceptions, no conditions, no negotiations." "That is impossible. The Empire has trillions of citizens across thousands of worlds. We cannot simply—" President Lee held up his hand. "Let me explain something to you, Ambassador. Your Empire made a choice when it decided to commit genocide against humanity. You chose to kill our families, murder our children, and try to wipe us from existence." He leaned forward, his eyes like ice. "Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. Unconditional surrender, or we start killing your sons. It's that simple." Kethral was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "President Lee, surely you cannot be serious about using weapons of such terrible power. The destruction of Zarian was meant to be a demonstration, yes? A way to bring the Empire to the negotiating table?" President Lee smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "Check your sensors, Ambassador." Kethral activated a small device on the table. His silver skin turned pale as he read the data. 20 ships, President Lee said. Each one equipped with a Nemesis drive, each one targeting an Empire military system. The first one reaches its destination in 6 hours. "You wouldn't dare?" Kethral whispered. "We dared to fight your fleets when we were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, President Lee said. "We dared to ram our ships into yours when retreat was the sensible option. We dared to build weapons that can kill stars. What makes you think we won't dare to use them?" The ambassador was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What assurance? Do we have that you will stop if we surrender?" "None," President Lee replied. "You'll have to trust us. Just like our children had to trust you when you promised safe passage during evacuations right before you murdered them." 6 hours later, Captain Chang Ho Kim arrived at the Malthorn system. The fortress world was surrounded by orbital weapons platforms and defensive stations. A fleet of 300 Empire ships waited to defend it. "Sir, they're hailing us," his communications officer reported. "Put them through." The screen showed an Empire admiral with red skin and burning eyes. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 300 to 1. Surrender now and we may show mercy." Chang Ho almost laughed. "Admiral, you still don't understand, do you? We're not here to fight your ships. We're here to kill your son." The Empire admiral's confident expression changed to confusion, then to horror as he understood what the human meant. "Beginning Nemesis drive sequence," Chang Ho announced to his crew. "All hands, prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace." The weapon powered up with the same reality-tearing sound as before. The Empire ships opened fire, but their weapons couldn't stop what was about to happen. The beam of impossible energy struck. Malthorn's sun and the star began to die. This time Chang Ho stayed longer to watch. He wanted to see the Empire ships realize what was happening. He wanted to watch them understand that all their weapons and armor meant nothing when faced with a dying star. The supernova began as a flicker, then grew brighter and brighter. The Empire ships tried to run, but supernovas travel at the speed of light. You can't outrun light. The Soul's Wrath jumped to hyperspace just as the star exploded, taking the fortress world and its 300 defenders with it. Across the galaxy, 19 more human ships were doing the same thing. 19 more suns were dying. 19 more Empire systems were turning to dust. The message was clear. This is what happens when you try to genocide humanity on the Empire capital world. Emperor Vorthak watched the reports with growing despair. 20 military systems gone. In one day, 20 suns turned into supernovas. Millions of soldiers dead along with their ships and bases. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvoar said, his voice shaking, "we must surrender. We cannot fight an enemy that can kill stars." "Never," the Emperor said, but his voice was weak now. "The Empire does not surrender. Your Majesty, they will kill us all. They will turn every star in the Empire into a supernova. Our people are rioting in the streets, demanding you surrender before they destroy our sun too. Outside the palace, Emperor Vorthek could hear the crowds chanting. His own people, the proud citizens of the Empire, were begging him to give up rather than face the wrath of humanity, but his pride would not let him surrender. Not to a species he had considered. Inferior, send more ships to human space, he ordered. Attack their worlds directly. If we are to die, we will take them with us. That was his final mistake. On Earth, President Lee received word of the new Empire attacks within hours. Sir, General So-young reported, Empire forces are attacking New Incheon and New Suwon colonies. They're not trying to conquer them. They're trying to kill everyone. President Lee stood up from his desk. His face was colder than the space between stars. How many more Nemesis drives do we have ready? 50, sir. Dr. Cho's teams have been working around the clock. Good. Target every Empire system with a population over 1 billion, including the capital. General So-young looked shocked. Sir, that would be genocide. Billions of innocent people. President Lee walked to the window and looked out. At the city below, children were playing in the parks, their parents watching with smiles. Normal life, continuing because brave humans were fighting and dying to protect it. General, how many of our innocent people has the Empire killed? How many of our children? Sir, over 30 million so far, and they're not stopping. They're not trying to conquer us anymore. They're trying to kill every human in the galaxy. President Lee turned to face his general, so now we do the same to them. Sir, with respect, this will make us no better than they are. President Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he said, General, we were never trying to be better than them. We were trying to survive them. And sometimes survival requires terrible choices. He pressed a button on his desk. Begin Operation Final Solution. Every major Empire world is a target, no mercy, no exceptions. 50 human ships equipped with Nemesis drives received their orders. The Empire had 50 major systems, each with billions of inhabitants. In 72 hours, they would all be dead unless the Empire surrendered unconditionally. Ambassador Prime Kethral received the news while still at the negotiation station. When he read the human ultimatum, his 6 arms began to shake. 50 systems, he whispered. You're going to kill 50 billion people. Only if we have to, President Lee replied. Surrender now, and they all live. Keep fighting, and they all die. Your choice. This is madness. This is genocide. Yes, it is. President. Dr. Mi-young Cho had not left her laboratory in 6 days. Empty coffee cups covered her desk, and her clothes were stained with chemical burns. But her eyes were bright with the fire of discovery. The Nemesis drive was finally ready. Dr. Cho. Her assistant called from across the lab. Admiral Kim is on the secure channel. Mi-young picked up the phone with shaking hands. Admiral, the prototype is complete. We can install it in your ship within 12 hours. What exactly does this weapon do? Admiral Dong-Su asked from his flagship. It destabilizes the nuclear reactions inside a star, Mi-young explained. Think of it like removing the safety valve from a pressure cooker. The star explodes and takes the whole system with it. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Admiral Dong-Su spoke, his voice very quiet. Dr. Cho, are you telling me you've built a weapon that can destroy entire star systems? Yes, sir. One activation, and everything within 10 billion kilometers is gone. Planets, moons, space stations, fleets, everything. And we're really going to use this? Mi-young thought about the reports from the front lines. 3 more human colonies had fallen this week. New Gwangju, New Ulsan, New Jeju. 15 million. People dead, their cities turned to glass by Empire weapons. Sir, they're not trying to conquer us, she said. They're trying to wipe us out completely. Every man, woman, and child. If we don't stop them now, there won't be any humans left to use any weapons. Admiral Dong-Su was quiet again. Then he said, Send me the coordinates for an uninhabited empire system. Something with no civilian populations but plenty of military. Value, the Zarian system, sir? It has mining stations and supply depots but no colonies. Perfect for a test. Upload the data to my ship and Dr. Cho? Yes, sir. Make sure this thing works. Because once we use it, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see humans the same way again. 2 days later, Captain Sung-Ho Bei stood on the bridge of the experimental ship Inchin's Fury. The ship was small, barely bigger than a destroyer, but it carried the most powerful weapon ever built. Sir, we're approaching the Zarian system, his navigator reported. Through the view screen, Sung-Ho could see the target system. The star was yellow, like Earth's sun. Around it orbited 6 planets and dozens of moons. The Empire had turned 3 of the planets into mining worlds, stripping them bare of metals and minerals. Any Empire ships in the system? He asked. 14 vessels, sir. Mostly cargo ships and escorts. Nothing we can't handle. Sung-Ho nodded. The Empire ships weren't the real target anyway. This was about sending a message. Take us to the optimal firing position, he ordered. And send a message to Earth. Tell them we're about to test humanity's final answer to the Empire's genocide. The Inchin's Fury moved deeper into the system, past the mining worlds and their orbital stations. Empire sensors detected them, but the aliens weren't worried. One small human ship against their whole operation seemed like suicide. They were right about the suicide part. They just didn't understand whose... Sir, we're at the target coordinates, the weapons officer reported. SEU Onjo-ho looked at the yellow star on his screen. In a few minutes it would be gone, along with everything else in this system. Begin the Nemesis drive sequence, he ordered. The ship's hull began to vibrate as the weapon powered up. Strange energy readings filled the air, making everyone's skin tingle. The Nemesis drive was unlike any weapon ever built. It didn't fire bullets or beams. It fired death itself. Drive is at 50% power, the weapons officer reported. 70%, 90%. Sir, the Empire ships are coming toward us, the tactical officer said. They're demanding we surrender? Sung-Ho smiled grimly. Tell them they're about to witness the birth of a new age. The age when humans stop playing defense. Drive at 100%, sir. Ready to fire. Sung-Ho took one last look at the doomed star. After today, the Empire would know that humans could kill worlds. Maybe that would make them think twice about genocide. Fire the Nemesis drive. The weapon discharged with a sound like reality tearing apart. A beam of impossible energy struck the star's core, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the sun started to die. It began as a flicker like a candle in the wind. Then the star's light grew brighter and brighter and brighter. The nuclear reactions that had burned steady for billions of years suddenly went wild. All ships, jump to hyperspace now, Sung-Ho ordered. Emergency jump, maximum distance. The Inchin's Fury vanished into hyperspace just as the star exploded. The supernova lit up half the galaxy. The explosion was so bright that ships 1,000 light-years away had to shield their sensors. The shock wave raced outward at the speed of light, carrying death to everything in its path. The Empire mining worlds died first, their atmospheres stripped away in seconds. The orbital stations melted like ice in a furnace. The Empire ships tried to run, but you can't outrun the death of a star. In less than an hour, the entire Zarian system was gone. Where once there had been planets and moons and the dreams of civilization, there was now only expanding gas and radiation. The message was received across the galaxy within hours. On the Empire capital world, Emperor Vorthak watched the recordings with growing horror. His advisors stood silent around him, afraid to speak. They destroyed a star, the Emperor said quietly. The humans destroyed an entire star system. Yes, Your Majesty, Admiral Kethvior replied. Everything in the Zarian system is gone. 14 ships, 3 mining worlds, millions of tons of equipment. All of it turned to dust. The Emperor's 4 eyes were wide with shock. How is this possible? How can any species have such power? We don't know, Your Majesty. Our scientists say it should be impossible to make a star go supernova artificially. Emperor Vorthak stood up from his throne and walked to the great window of his palace. Outside, the capital city stretched to the horizon, filled with billions of his subjects, all of them sleeping peacefully, thinking they were safe because they were the rulers of the galaxy. But if humans could kill stars, no one was safe anywhere. Send a message to all our fleets, he ordered. Full retreat from human space. Do not engage human ships unless directly attacked. Your Majesty? Admiral Kethvior looked confused. Surely you're not going to let this change our plans. The Emperor turned to face his admiral. His voice was cold as space. Admiral, the humans just demonstrated they can destroy entire star systems. Do you want to find out if they're willing to use that weapon on inhabited worlds? Meanwhile, on Earth, President Lee was receiving a very different kind of report. The test was successful, sir, General So-Young reported. The Zarian system has been completely destroyed. No survivors. President Lee nodded slowly. And how long until we can build more of these weapons? Dr. Cho says she can have 10 more Nemesis drives ready within a month, sir. Maybe 20 if we put all our resources into it. Do it, in general? Yes, sir? Send a message to every Empire world. Make sure they all know what happened at Zarian. Make sure they understand that we can do this to any system we choose. That night, President Lee stood on the balcony of his office, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Empire worlds were receiving humanity's message. Their leaders were realizing that the small, weak species they had tried to exterminate now had the power to kill suns, but President Lee felt no joy in this victory. The Nemesis drive was a terrible weapon, the kind that could end civilizations. Using it meant crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. His assistant, Sujin, came out onto the balcony. Sir, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Empire fleets are retreating from human space. Some of their subject species are declaring independence. Good, President Lee said quietly. Maybe now they'll understand. We didn't want this war, we just wanted to be left alone. Sir, what if they don't surrender? What if they keep fighting? President Lee looked up at the stars again. Each point of light could be a sun with planets around it. Planets full of people who had families and dreams just like humans did. Then we'll do what we have to do, he said. We'll turn their suns into supernovas one by one until they understand that you don't try to commit genocide against humanity. Across the galaxy, the news of Zarian spread like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, people looked up at the night sky and wondered if their sun would be next. The Empire's subject species began to whisper among themselves. If humans could kill stars, maybe the Empire wasn't as powerful as they pretended. Ambassador Sujin Han was on one of those worlds, meeting with resistance leaders in a hidden cave. Is it true? Asked Elder Kethna of the Altorians. Did humans really destroy an entire star system? It's true, Sujin replied. We sent the Empire a message they couldn't ignore. But this is just the beginning. We're offering you a choice. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Empire. Worlds were marked in red, human worlds in blue. But now there were green dots appearing everywhere, worlds in rebellion. Join us, she said. Fight with us. And when this war is over, you'll be free forever. The Empire will never enslave anyone again. Elder Kethna looked at the display with wonder. For 300 years his people had been slaves. They had given up hope of ever being free, but now humans had shown them that even the mighty Empire could be defeated. Even stars could be killed. What do you need from us? He asked Datsu-Jin. Smiled. Everything you can give. The Crimson Fleet was the Empire's most feared weapon. 50,000 ships painted blood red, commanded by Admiral Vexmore himself. They had conquered 200 worlds and never lost a battle. Now they were coming for humanity. Admiral Vexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death of Worlds. Through the massive view screen, he could see his fleet stretching out like a Red Sea. Each ship was bigger than anything the humans had built. Each carried enough firepower to level a city. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we are approaching the human base at Kepler Station." Vexmore smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Good. The humans destroyed our supply depot there. Now we will show them what real military power looks like." What he didn't know was that the human fleet was already waiting for him. Captain Hyeon-soo Park commanded Battle Group Terra, the largest human fleet ever assembled. 200 ships strong, they had been waiting in the asteroid field near Kepler for 3 days. Every ship was fitted with the new Hellfire missiles and Ghost Drive systems. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Empire fleet detected?" "Count is ... Oh no, how many?" Captain Park asked, though he already knew it was bad news. 500 ships, sir." "Maybe more, they're huge." Captain Park looked around his bridge. His crew was scared, and they had every right to be. The odds were worse than anything humans had ever faced, but then he remembered the pictures from New Bizan, children's toys melted by Empire weapons. Families who would never see each other again. His own sister had lived on New Sol Colony before the Empire turned it into glass. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. When the channel was open, he spoke to his fleet. His voice was calm and steady. "I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered worse than David was against Goliath. The Empire thinks these odds will make us run away. They think we'll see their big ships and surrender." He paused and looked out at his small fleet. Each ship represented thousands of human lives. Mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, all ready to die for their species. "They don't understand humans very well. We don't run from bullies. We punch them in the face. Today we punched the biggest bully in the galaxy right in the teeth." Commander Jin-A Kwan was listening from her ship, the Bison's Revenge. She had named it after her homeworld, the first world the Empire had murdered. Her parents had died there, along with everyone else she had ever known. "All ships," Captain Park continued, "activate ghost drives on my mark. We're going to show these aliens what happens when you make humans angry." Ghost drive activated. Jin-A reported along with the other captains. Around her, the Bison's Revenge seemed to fade away like a dream. The ship was still there, but now it was invisible to Empire sensors. The Crimson Fleet arrived at Kepler Station expecting to find terrified humans running away. Instead, they found empty space. "Where are they?" Admiral Vexmore demanded. "Our intelligence said there was a human fleet here." "Scanning, sir," his sensor officer replied. "I'm not detecting any human ships." "They must have fled when they saw us coming," Vexmore said with satisfaction. "Humans are cowards after all." That's when the first Hellfire missiles hit his fleet. The missiles seemed to appear out of nowhere, striking Empire ships faster than thought. Each missile hit like a small star, punching through armor that should have stopped anything the humans could build. "What's happening?" Vexmore shouted as his flagship shook from a near miss. "Unknown weapons, sir. They're coming from all directions." On the Bison's Revenge, Jin-A watched her missiles tear through Empire ships like paper. The new weapons were everything Dr. Nam had promised. Each Hellfire missile could destroy a ship 10 times its size. "Target the big ones first," she ordered her weapons officer. "The smaller ships will run when they see their leaders die." But she was wrong about one thing. The Empire ships didn't run. They couldn't see their attackers, but they started firing in all directions, hoping to hit something, space filled with deadly energy beams and explosive shells. The Empire was shooting blindly, but with so many ships firing, some shots were bound to hit. The human destroyer New Daegu flickered back into view as its ghost drive was damaged. Immediately, 20 Empire ships focused their fire on it. The New Daegu lasted exactly 10 seconds before it exploded. "We're taking losses," Captain Park reported to his fleet. "But we're giving more than we get. Keep moving and keep firing." Jin-A spun her ship through the battle, dodging Empire fire by inches. Her Hellfire missiles were running low, but each shot was still finding its target. Around her, invisible human ships danced through the Empire formation like ghosts, striking and vanishing, the battle turned into a nightmare for the Empire. They were fighting an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. These humans fight like demons. One Empire captain reported before his ship exploded. Admiral Vexmore was starting to understand what his fleet was facing. "They're not running," he said quietly. "They're hunting us." On the other side of the galaxy, another kind of battle was raging. Colonel Dongwook Shin crept through the ruins of New Incheon City. The Empire had taken this human colony 3 days ago, but they were finding out that conquering a place and holding it were two different things. His team of 50 soldiers moved like shadows through the rubble. Each one was armed with the new pulse weapons and carried enough explosives to level a building. They had been fighting the Empire occupation for 3 days without rest. "Target building ahead," Sergeant Thurim whispered into her radio. "Looks like they're using it as a command post." Dong-wook could see Empire soldiers through the broken windows. They looked nervous and jumpy. Good, scared enemies made mistakes. "Jin-ho, take your team around the back," he ordered. "Me, Young. You're with me on the front door? We go in loud and fast." The attack lasted exactly 90 seconds. Human soldiers burst into the building from 3 directions at once, their weapons cutting down Empire troops before they could react. When it was over, 23 alien soldiers were dead, and the humans had lost no one. "Sir," Sergeant Thurim called out, "found something interesting." She was standing over an Empire communication console. The screen showed troop positions across the colony. "They have 3,000 soldiers here," she reported. "But look at this. They're all concentrated in the main base. The rest of the colony is barely guarded." Dong-wook studied the display. The Empire was making a classic mistake. They were trying to hold one strong position instead of controlling the whole area. "Send a message to all resistance cells," he ordered. "Tell them to hit every Empire outpost at the same time. Make them think we have an army when it's really just angry civilians with guns." That night, the Empire garrison on New Incheon found themselves under attack from everywhere at once. Farmers with pulse rifles hit supply convoys. Shopkeepers with explosives destroyed communication towers. Even children threw rocks and homemade bombs at Empire patrols. The Empire commander called for reinforcements, but there were none to send. Every human world was fighting back now. Every colony was a battlefield. "How many rebels are there?" he demanded from his aide. "We don't know, sir. It could be a few hundred or a few thousand. They all look like civilians until they start shooting." The commander was learning something that would have saved the Empire a lot of trouble if they had known it earlier. Humans didn't have professional soldiers and civilians. When you threatened human families, every human became a soldier. Back at the battle near Kepler Station, the tide was starting to turn. Admiral Vexmore had lost over 100 ships, while the humans had only lost 20. His Crimson Fleet was still bigger, but the humans were fighting smarter. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human ships are regrouping. They're forming up for another attack." Vexmore could see them now on his sensors. The human fleet had dropped their invisibility and was coming straight at his formation. It looked like a suicide charge. "All ships prepare for close combat," he ordered. "Let them come. We'll destroy them all." Captain Park was indeed ordering a direct attack, but not for the reasons the Empire thought. "Listen carefully," he told his fleet. "Our ghost drives are running low on power. We have maybe one more invisibility cycle left. So we're going to use it to get right next to their biggest ships." Commander Jin-A understood immediately. "Ramming attack?" "Ramming attack," Park confirmed. "Pick your targets and make them count. We're not just trying to win this battle. We're trying to send a message to every Empire ship in the galaxy." The human fleet charged toward the Crimson Fleet like a spear thrown by an angry god. When they were almost close enough to touch, they activated their ghost drives one last time and vanished. Seconds later, invisible human ships materialized. Inside the Empire formation, ramming cruisers and battleships at full speed. The explosions lit up space like new stars being born. Jin-A aimed the Bison's Revenge at Admiral Vexmore's flagship. She could see the massive ship getting bigger. and bigger through her view screen. "For new Bizan," she whispered, and rammed her ship into the death of worlds at maximum speed. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, the Crimson Fleet was broken. Half their ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest were running for home as fast as they could go. Admiral Vexmore was dead, along with most of his crew. The Empire's most feared weapon had been... Dr. Young Ho Nam had not slept in 3 days. His eyes were red and his hands shook as he worked at his computer. Around him, the secret research facility under Mount Fuji buzzed with activity. Scientists and engineers ran from lab to lab, carrying data chips and weapon prototypes. The Prometheus project had been humanity's biggest secret for 10 years. Even most government officials didn't know about it. The idea was simple but terrible: build weapons so powerful that no alien race would ever dare attack Earth. Now the time for secrets was over. "Dr. Nam," his assistant Haewon called out. "The President is on the secure line." Young Ho picked up the phone. "Mr. President, I need more time. The weapons aren't ready for field testing yet." "Time is what we don't have." President Lee's voice was hard. "The Empire just hit New Sol Colony. 3 million more people dead. How long until you can give me something that works?" Young Ho looked around his lab. Prototype weapons sat on tables, half-finished and dangerous. The Hellfire missiles could punch through any armor, but they might explode in their own launchers. The Ghost Drive could make ships invisible, but the test ship disappeared completely and never came back. "Give me 12 hours, he said. "I can have the first batch of Hellfire missiles ready by then." "You have 6 hours, the President said, and hung up. Young Ho turned to his team. "You heard him. 6 hours. If we don't get this right, there might not be any humans left to use these weapons." Across the galaxy, Admiral Dongsu was about to test humanity's other secret weapon, pure rage. He stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride, watching the tactical display. The Empire supply depot at Kepler Station was just ahead. It was huge, maybe 10 miles across and heavily defended. Intelligence said it supplied weapons to 50 Empire worlds. "Captain Park," he said. "Are all ships in position?" "Yes, sir." 24 ships ready for attack. "But, sir, the station has twice as many defenders." "As we do." Dongsu smiled. It was not a nice smile. "They're about to learn that numbers don't matter when you're fighting angry humans." He opened a channel to all his ships. "Attention all vessels. The Empire thinks they can murder our families and will run away scared. They're wrong. Today we show them what happens when you make humans angry. No mercy, no prisoners. Burn it all." The human fleet attacked like a pack of wolves. Instead of the careful formations the Empire expected, the human ships came from all directions at once. They flew crazy patterns that made no sense, dodging and weaving like insects. Captain Wu Jin Lim commanded the destroyer New Incheon. His ship was small and fast, built for hit-and-run attacks. He took his ship right through the middle of the Empire formation, firing everything he had. "Sir, we're taking heavy fire," his weapons officer reported. "Good," Wu Jin said. "That means they're not shooting at the bigger ships. Keep us moving." The New Incheon spun and dove, its hull glowing from near misses. Wu Jin watched his damage. Reports climbed higher and higher. His ship was dying, but it was taking Empire ships with it. "There," he said, pointing at a massive Empire cruiser. "That one's protecting their command ship." "Ramit, sir?" his pilot asked. "You heard me. Full speed right into their reactor core." The New Incheon turned and accelerated toward the Empire ship. The aliens saw them coming and tried to run, but the human destroyer was too fast. It hit the cruiser's side and both ships exploded in. A ball of white fire. All across the battle, human ships were making desperate attacks. They flew into enemy fire without fear. They rammed ships 10 times their size. They kept fighting even after their hulls were torn open and their crews were dying. The Empire defenders had never seen anything like it. These humans fought like they wanted to die as long as they could take enemies with them. "What's wrong with them?" an Empire captain asked his crew. "Why won't they retreat?" He got his answer when a human fighter, its pilot already dead, crashed into his ship's bridge on autopilot. Admiral Dong-su watched the battle from Seoul's Pride. His fleet was being torn apart, but so was the Empire Station. The math was terrible, but the results were good. For every human ship lost, 3 Empire ships were destroyed. "Sir, message from Earth," Lieutenant Woo-jin reported. "Dr. Nam has finished the first weapons shipment." "Good," Dong-su said. "Order all surviving ships to rendezvous at Point Alpha. It's time to test our new toys." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Soo-jin Han was doing something that had never been done before. She was asking the Empire's slaves to fight back. The planet Altoria had been under Empire rule for 300 years. Its people, the Altorians, were peaceful plant-eaters who had never fought a war. The Empire used them as servants and farmers, taking most of what they grew and leaving them just enough to survive. Soo-jin sat in a secret meeting with the Altorian leaders. The room was hidden deep underground, away from Empire spies. "You want us to rebel?" asked Elder Kethna. His tree-like body swayed nervously. "The Empire will kill us all." "They're already killing you," Soo-jin said. "Just slowly." "How many of your people die every year from hunger? How many children are taken away to work in Empire mines?" The Altorians looked at each other. They all knew the answer. "But we have no weapons," said another elder. "We don't know how to fight." Soo-jin opened a metal case. "Inside were human weapons, small but deadly. We'll teach you. And we'll give you these." She pulled out a pulse rifle and showed them how it worked. "Point and shoot. It's that simple. One shot can kill an Empire soldier." Elder Kethna picked up one of the weapons. It felt strange in his plant-like hands. "And you'll help us?" "More than help," Soo-jin said. "We'll lead the attack ourselves. Humans don't ask others to fight battles we won't fight too." That night, the rebellion began. Altorian farmers attacked Empire outposts with human weapons. They moved through the forests like ghosts, striking and disappearing. The Empire soldiers, used to easy victory, found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see or catch. "This is impossible," the Empire commander said as he looked at his reports. "These are farmers, not soldiers." His aide was nervous. "Sir, maybe we should ask for reinforcements." "From where?" The commander snapped. "Half the fleet is fighting the humans. The other half is trying to stop rebellions on 20 other worlds." He didn't know it yet, but Soo-jin had been very busy. Human agents were on 50 Empire worlds now, teaching slaves how to fight and giving them weapons. The Empire was about to discover what happened when you ruled through fear, but then gave people hope. Back at the secret weapons facility, Dr. Young-ho Nam finally had good news to report. "Mr. President," he said over the secure line, "the first batch of weapons is ready. We have 50 Hellfire missiles, 20 Ghost Drive units, and something new." "What's the something new?" Young-ho smiled for the first time in days. "We call it the Nemesis Drive. It can make stars go supernova." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then President Lee spoke, his voice very quiet. "You built a weapon that can destroy star systems?" "Yes, sir. The theory was always there. We just had to figure out how to make it work." "One ship with a Nemesis Drive can take out an entire Empire world." "How many do we have?" "Just one prototype. But if it works, we can build more." President Lee was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Send it to Admiral Kim. Tell him to test it on an Empire system with no civilian populations. If it works, we'll use it to end this war." "Sir, are you sure?" "Once we use this weapon, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see humans the same way again." "Good," the president said. "After what they did to New Basan and New Seoul, I want them to be afraid of us. I want them to wake up at night in cold sweats, wondering if today is the day the humans come for them." Dr. Young-ho understood. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were just another weak species they could push around. They were about to learn that humans were something much more dangerous. They were survivors. And survivors did whatever it took to win. In his palace on the Empire capital world, Emperor Vorthak was getting reports that made no sense. "They're fighting like madmen," Admiral Exmoor reported. Human ships ram our vessels instead of retreating. Their pilots fly suicide missions without hesitation. And now rebellions are breaking out everywhere. The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. How many worlds? 47 and counting, Your Majesty. The humans are giving weapons to our subject species and teaching them to fight. Emperor Vorthak felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. How is this possible? We outnumber them 1,000 to 1. Numbers don't seem to matter to humans, Your Majesty. They fight like every battle is their last. And they never surrender, even when defeat is certain. The Emperor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, double the attacks on human worlds. Show them what happens when they defy us. Yes, Your Majesty. But as Admiral Vexmore left the throne room, he wondered if more attacks would solve anything. The humans got more dangerous every time you hurt them. It was like fighting fire with gasoline. In space near Earth, Admiral Dongsu looked at his new weapons. The Hellfire missiles gleamed in the cargo bay, each one capable of destroying a ship 10 times larger than itself. The Ghost Drive units hummed with strange energy that made his teeth ache, and in a special sealed container was the Nemesis Drive prototype, the weapon that could kill stars. Captain Park, he said, plot a course for the Zarian system. Accordin'. The attack came at dawn on New BUSAN. Commander Teho Choi was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his cup and ran to the command center of the colony. Through the big windows he could see the sky burning. Empire ships filled the air above the farming world. They were huge and black, like flying mountains. Their weapons lit up the morning sky with deadly light. Each blast turned buildings into dust and people into memories. How many ships? Teho shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Bioram ran up to him. Her face was white with fear. At least 50, sir. Maybe more. They came out of hyperspace right on top of us. Teho felt sick. New Bizan was just a farming colony. 2 million people lived here, growing food for other human worlds. They had no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. Start the evacuation, he ordered. Get every ship we have in the air. Move the civilians to the shelters first, then to the ships. Sir, we only have 12 cargo ships. We can't take everyone. Teho closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and his voice was hard as steel. Then we save who we can and make the Empire pay for the rest. The Empire ships kept firing. The capital city of New Bizan was already half gone. Farms burned across the planet. The air filled with smoke and screams. In space above New Bizan, Lieutenant Yunbai Song flew her fighter as fast as it would go. She was part of the colony's small defense force. 12 fighters against 50 Empire cruisers. The math was terrible, but she didn't care. Gold Squadron, this is Gold Leader, she said into her radio. We can't win this fight, but we can buy time for the evacuations. Stay close and pick your targets. Copy that, Gold Leader, came the voices of her pilots. They all knew they were going to die. But they also knew their families were down on that planet. EU Unbai's fighter screamed toward the nearest Empire ship. It was 10 times bigger than her little craft, but she had one advantage. She was human, and humans were crazy. She fired everything she had at the big ship's engines. Her missiles hit home, and the cruisers started to list to one side. The Empire ship tried to turn its guns on her, but she was already gone, diving toward another target. Gold 3 is down, came a voice over the radio. Then, Gold 7, I'm hit bad. One by one, her pilots were falling, but they were doing damage too. Yunbai watched Gold 5 ram his damaged fighter right into an Empire ship's bridge. The whole front of the cruiser exploded. That's for my daughter, Gold 5 said over the radio, just before his ship disappeared in fire. Eun-by felt tears on her face, but she kept fighting. Her fighter was hit now, leaking air and fuel. The controls were getting sluggish. She had maybe one more attack left in her. She saw the biggest Empire ship, the one that looked like it was in command. Its captain was probably down there right now, watching human cities burn and feeling proud of himself. All remaining Gold Squadron, she said into her radio. Let's show these aliens what humans do when they hurt our families. She pointed her dying fighter at the Empire command ship and pushed the throttle to maximum. Behind her, the last three fighters of Gold Squadron did the same thing. The Empire ship saw them coming and tried to shoot them down. Gold 8 exploded in a ball of fire. Gold 11's fighter broke apart, but the pilot kept flying the front half until it hit the enemy hull. Unbai's fighter was falling apart around her, but she held it steady. The Empire ship got bigger and bigger in her view screen. For humanity, she whispered, and crashed her fighter right into the alien ship's main reactor. The explosion lit up half the planet. On the surface, Commander Tejo saw the flash in the sky. He knew what it meant. Gold Squadron was gone, but they had taken 3 Empire cruisers with them. Sir, the last transport is loaded, Lieutenant B.O. Ram reported. We got about 800,000 people out. Tejo nodded. 800,000 saved. More than 1 million dead or dying. The numbers hurt like a knife in his chest. Signal the transport, he said. Tell them to run for Earth. Get our people to safety. What about us, sir? Tejo looked around the command center. 20 people were still here, keeping the communications working so the evacuation could succeed. They all knew they weren't leaving. We stay and make sure the message gets out, he said. Every human world needs to know what happened here. They need to know the Empire doesn't just want to conquer us. They want to kill us all. The Empire ships were landing now. Alien soldiers poured out, finishing off anyone who was still alive. Their weapons turned everything they touched to ash. Tejo sent his final message to Earth just as the aliens broke down the door. New Bizon has fallen. 2 million civilians dead. The Empire isn't taking prisoners. This is genocide. Remember us. Make them pay. The transmission cut off, thousands of light years away. Admiral Dongsu received the message on Seoul's Pride. He read it twice, then called his officers together. New Bizon is gone, he told them. Captain Park gasped. Lieutenant Wu Jin hit the wall with his fist. All of them? Captain Park asked. 2 million people, Dongsu said quietly. Men, women, children. The Empire killed them all. The bridge was silent except for the sound of people crying. New Bizon had been a peaceful world. The people there never hurt anyone. They just grew food and raised their families. Sir, Lieutenant Wu Jin said, his voice shaking with anger. What are your orders? Admiral Dongsu looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that darkness, Empire ships were moving toward other human worlds. Other families were about to die. Send a message to all human colonies, he said. Tell them what happened at New Bizon. Tell them the Empire is not here to conquer. They're here to commit genocide. He turned to face his crew. Every face was hard with anger now. And send another message to Earth. Tell President Lee that the Empire has made their choice. Now we make ours. On Earth, President Lee got the message about New Bizon while he was in a meeting with his generals. When he read it, his face went white. 2 million? He asked. Yes, sir, General So-young said. The entire colony, gone. President Lee was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Down below, people were still going about their normal lives. But that was about to change. Activate the Home Defense Force, he ordered. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. And call Dr. Naum. Tell him to start the Prometheus project immediately. Sir. The Prometheus project isn't ready yet, General So-young said. The weapons are still experimental. President Lee turned around. His eyes were like ice. Then we better hope they work. Because after New Bizon, this isn't just a war anymore. This is survival. He walked back to his desk and pressed a button. Every screen in the room lit up with a map of human space. Red dots showed where Empire ships were moving. They think they scared us by killing innocent people, President Lee said. They think we'll surrender now that we've seen what they can do. He smiled, but it was a terrible smile. They're about to learn that killing human civilians is the worst mistake they could have made, because now every human in the galaxy wants their blood. The president looked at his generals. Gentlemen, the gloves are off. Show me how we make the Empire regret ever hearing the word human. In space near the ruins of New Bizon, AN Empire Patrol found something strange. It was a small probe, barely bigger than a person. It was broadcasting a message over and over. The Empire captain ordered his crew to bring the probe aboard. When they translated the message, it was very simple. You killed our families. You murdered our children. You thought this would make us afraid? You were wrong. We are coming for you, all of you, and we will not stop until every Empire world is dust. This is not a threat, this is a promise. Signed, Humanity, the Empire captain laughed. Foolish humans. Don't they understand? We have already won? But as his ship flew away from the dead world, he didn't see the other probes. Hundreds of them, spreading out in all directions. Each one carried the same message. Each one also carried something else. They carried the location of every Empire ship that had attacked New Vestan, and they carried targeting data for weapons that the Empire had never seen before. The humans were coming. And they were bringing hell with them. Admiral Dong-Soo Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the stars. The ship was huge, bigger than most cities back on Earth. Its name was Seoul's Pride, and it was the most powerful ship in the human fleet. Dong-Soo had been its captain for 5 years now, and he knew every part of it like his own home. The bridge was quiet today. Too quiet. His crew worked at their stations, but everyone felt the tension in the air. Something big was coming. They all knew it. Captain Hyejin Park walked up to him. She was his second in command and one of the smartest people he knew. Her face looked worried. Admiral, we're getting a message from the Galactic Empire. It's marked as urgent. Dong-Soo nodded. Put it on the main screen. The stars disappeared from the view screen. Instead, a huge alien face appeared. It had gray skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. This was Emperor Vorthuk, ruler of the Galactic Empire. His voice was deep and scary when he spoke. Humans of the Sol System, the Emperor said. His words were cold as ice. You have become too bold? Your colonies spread like a disease across our galaxy. Your ships travel routes that belong to us. Your people take resources that are ours by right. Dong-Soo felt his hands make fists. He had heard this kind of talk before from the Empire. They thought they owned everything just because they were older and had more ships. The Emperor kept talking. We have been patient with your kind. Too patient, but no more. I give you one final chance to save yourselves. All human colonies outside. Your home system must be abandoned. All human ships must return to Earth. All human expansion must stop forever. The alien's 4 eyes seemed to look right at Dong-Soo through the screen. You have 72 standard hours to agree to these terms. If you refuse, we will show no mercy. Every human world will burn. Every human ship will be destroyed. Every human life will end. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The screen went black. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Captain Park spoke first. Sir, they can't be serious. They're talking about genocide. They're very serious, Dong-Soo said quietly. The Empire doesn't make empty threats. Lieutenant Woo-jin came running up to them. He looked scared but also angry. Admiral, we're getting reports from all over human space. Empire ships are moving toward our borders. Lots of them. Dong-Soo walked to his command chair and sat down. He needed to think. The Empire was huge. They had thousands of worlds and millions of ships. Humans only had about 50 colonies and maybe 300 warships. The numbers were not good, but humans had something the Empire didn't understand. They had heart. They had the will to fight even when things looked impossible. Send a message to Earth, Dong-Soo ordered. Tell President Lee what just happened. Make sure he knows the Empire is serious. Yes, sir, Lieutenant Woo-jin said, and ran back to his station. Captain Park moved closer to Dong-Soo. What do you think Earth will decide? Dong-Soo looked at her. I think you already know the answer to that. On Earth, President Ji-Woo Lee sat in his office in the capital city of New Seoul. The office had big windows that looked out over the city. Millions of people lived there, going about their normal lives. They had no idea that their whole world might end in 3 days. The president's assistant, Miss Soo-jin, came into the room. Sir, we just got Admiral Kim's message. The Empire has given us an ultimatum. President Lee read the message on his computer. His face got darker with each word. When he finished, he was quiet for a long time. Sir, Miss Sujin asked, what should we tell the Admiral? President Lee stood up and walked to the window. Down below, children were playing in a park. Their parents watched them with smiles. Everyone looked happy and peaceful. Call an emergency meeting of the Defense Council, he said, and get me a direct line to every human colony. I want to talk to all of them at the same time. 2 hours later, President Lee sat in the main communications room. Around him were his top advisors and military leaders. General So Young-yoon was there, along with Dr. Young-ho Nam from the Research Division. Are all colonies connected? President Lee asked. Yes, sir, the communications officer said. Every human settlement can hear you now. President Lee took a deep breath. What he said next would change everything. My fellow humans, he began. Today the Galactic Empire gave us a choice. They want us to give up everything we have built. They want us to crawl back to Earth like beaten dogs. They want us to live as prisoners in our own home system. He paused and looked around the room. Every face was watching him. They say if we refuse, they will destroy us all. They think we will be scared. They think we will beg for mercy. They think humans are weak. His voice got stronger. They are wrong. President Lee stood up. We came from a small blue planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We learned to fly when we had no wings. We learned to swim when we had no gills. We reached for the stars. When everyone said it was impossible, the room was completely quiet now. The Empire thinks they can scare us with threats, but they don't understand what humans really are. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We don't stop fighting until we win. President Lee walked closer to the camera. So here is our answer to the Galactic Empire. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not stop our expansion. We will not bow to your threats. Come and try to stop us. Come and see what happens when you threaten human children. Come and learn why our ancestors conquered a whole planet with nothing but sharp sticks and bad attitudes. He smiled, but it was not a nice smile. You want a war? You've got one. But remember this, you started it. And we humans have a saying, we don't stop until it's dust. The message went out across the galaxy on all frequencies. Every ship, every station, every world could hear it. The Empire heard it too. In his palace on the capital world, Emperor Vorthak watched the human president's speech. When it ended, he was quiet for a moment. Foolish creatures, he said to his advisors. They choose death over wisdom. Very well, send the order to all fleets. Begin the attack. But deep inside, something small and cold touched the Emperor's heart. It was doubt. The human leader had not looked scared. He had looked eager. On Seoul's pride, Admiral Dong-su finished watching the president's speech. Around him, his crew was cheering and shouting. They were ready to fight. Captain Park came up to him. Order, sir? Dong-su looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the Empire's ships were coming. They thought they were hunting helpless prey. They were about to learn better. Send a message to all human ships, he said. Tell them to prepare for war, and Captain? Yes, sir? Make sure they know, no prisoners. No mercy. They want to see what humans do when cornered. Let's show them.